And hello, good evening, and welcome to our second premiere 002 on this day, Wednesday, February 2nd. And just want to give you a little bit of a agenda for what we're going to be doing for the next probably hour and a half to 2 hours. The purpose of these premieres, as you may know, is that Rose has been having some difficulties. I won't speak for her, but we all know, if you know her, that she has her challenges. So until Rose either decides that she's able to come back for the live sessions, or if she decides that it's too much for her to do, it's okay either way. We'll do the premieres, and what I will be doing, and I'll be announcing this later, is doing the premieres, and then a day or so later, we'll do a live stream with interacting, asking, answering questions, and so on. So for tonight, I decided to come back and do our 1-minute meditation as we have been doing. And then after that, we'll continue on with session 3, part 4 of the introduction to meditation, the relaxation response. And this is a wrap-up of that section. And then we'll do a new guided meditation. And this is one of my favorites. It's called Your Body, or sometimes I call it Walking Through Your Body. And with this one, like the color meditation, all you have to do is to sit quietly with your eyes closed or open and just enjoy the 5 or 6 minute guided meditation. And then after that, we will go into the internal map of reality. We started beliefs. We're going to go on to part 2 of beliefs. And then after that, we have a bonus, something that's, I think, very important. It's called lifelong scripts. And these little bonus clips are really intended to give you a peek ahead as to what we're going to and the types of things that I believe the knowledge of this internal map of reality can help you with. We've been dealing with power frames to give you that extra little boost. We've been dealing with meditations. We've been dealing with how to structure your questions and desires when you're talking to your internal subconscious. Now I want to introduce something that we all know. It's called your lifelong scripts. Okay, well, here we go, and I hope you really enjoy the following sessions. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to just reach out and send me an email. Okay, so just as in our other sessions, just sit quietly, relax, and focus on something either with your eyes closed or open. And if your eyes are open, just focus on something in front of you. And if you get distracted, just very gently go back to focusing on whatever you are looking at. Here we go. Okay, well, that was pleasant. It's nice to practice these, and I hope you will practice them at home. We're going to continue on to Session 3, Part 4 of the Relaxation Response. Hello and welcome to Introduction to Meditation, Session 3, Part 4 of 4. And we're going to be spending a little bit more time looking at detachment and detachment meditation and how we use that in our skills that we're building. We're building skills here and knowledge. Okay, so let's just go there. We go. So in the traditional detachment meditation, been talking a little bit about the fact that you can do it with your eyes open or your eyes closed. Now, there are people who will swear that one is better than the other. I do both. I personally find that over time I've kind of preferred with the eyes open and looking slightly straight ahead, but maybe slightly gaze slightly down a little bit. There's a reason that I have developed a personal preference for that, is that it leaves me in a more open perceiving my environment. So if I hear a sound, I won't be guessing what the sound is. However, in the beginning, a lot of people find that with the eyes closed, they can relax more. And there's a proven thing that we will be talking about when we get into the frequencies of the brain. Just by closing the eyes, you lower the frequency of your brain. So you get into a lower meditative state simply by closing the eyes. And I think for beginners, that's an easy way of getting into a deeper meditative state. And you might notice that the first thing you do when you go to bed is to close your eyes, and that immediately throws you into the relaxation response, or begins to. And then we did talk, obviously, about focus, and that I feel it's really all about the power to be able to focus without becoming triggered. How do you look at information without it triggering you? Well, this affects the way what people sometimes call contemplation. If you are receiving information and you are processing this information, some people call it contemplation, I call it processing. If you are processing it in a neutral way, then you're more likely, in my opinion, to arrive at a decision or a conclusion that is more balanced. So this whole chapter has been about balancing our nervous system, balancing our yin and yang. And I believe one approach to do that has to do with staying in a neutral state. So we talked about detachment as it pertains to being associated and disassociated. So one of the ways of detaching from information is to disassociate yourself from it. And I made a reference to if you are recalling a frame, either being from the past, present, or future, and you are actually in the frame. You're the person skiing down the hill, and you're in the skis. You feel yourself in the skis. You feel the wind on your body, and da-da-da. You are being highly associated in that frame. If, however, you're seeing yourself from a distance skiing down the hill, and you can see yourself skiing, but you're not there experiencing it. You're observing it from a distance. So there's the mountain hill, and you're going down the hill, and you're skiing, but you're observing it from a distance. So being external versus internal. So this disassociated is a way of detaching from a frame if you need to. But I want to zero in on something called the neutral observer. So if you are going to be a neutral observer, you're basically going to be in that number 3 state. If I am going to be trying to work with someone and I am in a 1 or 2, I think it's very funny and I'm laughing and I'm having a great time, but they're not. They're not. They're in a 4 or 5 state and I'm in a 1 or 2. So there's an unbalance there. If someone is in a 4 or 5 state and I'm in a 4 or 5 state, that really doesn't help them either. What really would help that person who's in that 4 or 5 state is me being neutral, being in that number 3, and giving them a chance to neutralize those feelings. Now, there's nothing wrong with being a 1 or 2, and there's nothing wrong with being a 4 or 5. I think we tend to put some kind of reasoning or justification or qualification on whatever state you're in. There's nothing in itself inherently right or wrong about any of these states. However, in the number 3 neutral state, you are, I think, experiencing things without judgment. Okay, you're just there. So in your meditative state, you're really a number 3. And when something is triggering you to become a number 1 or 2 or a number 4 or 5, that's taking you away from that neutral state. And you can, in my opinion, no longer remain a neutral observer. It's very hard to be neutral if you are in a 1, 2, or 4 or 5 state. Now, realizing when you're in a 1 or 2 is very important, because it is only when you realize that you're in one of these reactionary states, 1, 2, 4, 5, that you can then disassociate and come back to being a number 3. And you can use any of the techniques that we've talked about so far, or any that you may have on your own. Some people just say, well, how do you go back to a very calm, neutral, meditative state? And some people say, oh, I just do it. Well, if you can just do it, fantastic, that's great. But we now have some actual tools. So if you are reacting to something, you can now know that it's a frame, and you can look at that frame and you can bring up a different frame. So if the frame you're observing is no longer making you neutral, you can bring up a frame that is more calming. So if you're experiencing something that's making you not feel okay, making you a 4 or 5, you can bring up the opposite, something that will be more light. But there's another way of doing it. That's by disassociating yourself in that frame. Like the example I use as being the person skiing down the hill, or are you observing the person skiing down the hill? One is associated, you're skiing, you're on the skis, or you're being disassociated, you're observing. So you can make yourself dissociated. Yet there's another way. Another way as to not even to use a frame is when you get to a point and you realize that you're looking at a frame that's making you a 1 or 2 or 4 or 5, you can learn to just let that frame go. Just like we did with all the other thoughts in our meditation, is to just let it go. There will be a state in between where you're just there. There'll be a calm state. So in between a thought or receiving a frame, there's nothing going on. You will automatically go back to that neutral number 3 state. So let me repeat again. By disconnecting or disassociating from a frame and just letting it go, you will automatically begin to move back to a number 3 state. So you could say that a number 3 state is where your yin and yang energies are balanced, where your sympathetic and parasympathetic energies are in balance for what you're doing. So you can practice this, so when you're meditating and you feel yourself go into a 1 or 2, nothing wrong with that, that's great. Acknowledge it and then let it go and come back to a 3. Same thing when you're meditating and you feel yourself go into a 4 or 5 state. Nothing wrong with that. It's just information. You can let those frames go and come back to number 3. So this is something you can practice. And what will happen when you meditate, these frames as these memories or whatever you are recalling, frames from the past, the present, or the future, will tend to have a meaning, will tend to throw you into a 1, 2, 4, 5. And just pay attention to that, become aware of it. You don't need to do anything about it, but just become aware of it. We will be doing some exercises in that, and I'll probably will be sending the exercise out in an email. Okay, well that's it for this session. We'll be going on in our next session talking about brain balance. And we'll be looking at session 4, part 1, left, right, brain balance. Thank you for being part of session 3. Okay, here is a new guided meditation. As with the color meditation, just sit quietly and enjoy this walk through your body. Okay, we're going to do a guided meditation. So just sit comfortably in your chair, let your eyes close, and just listen to my voice. We're going to walk through your body. I'm going to mention a part of your body, and what I'd like you to do is just take your awareness there. Don't do anything, just go there in your mind and observe that part of your body. I'm going to start with your feet. Take your awareness to your feet, the soles of your feet, your toes, your ankles, tops of your feet, and even inside your foot. Take all your awareness to your feet. Still not moving or doing anything, take your awareness in both legs from your ankles to your knees. Just move your mind's eye and focus in on the area from your ankles to your knees. The calves, the shin, the skin. Okay, good. Now we're going to move your attention from your knees in both legs to your hips. From your knees to your hips. Become totally aware of that area. We're going to keep moving our attention now from your hips to your ribs, your stomach area, your lower back, your sides, the whole abdominal area, from your hips to your ribs. You might be aware of your stomach moving in and out as you breathe. But again, just take your attention there. Now we'll move up to your rib cage, from your diaphragm up to your shoulders, your sides of your ribs, your chest, your upper back. And again, you might be aware of your lungs, you might be aware of your heart. Just become totally aware of that area. And again, without changing anything, we're just moving your attention, move to your hands. Become totally aware of your palms of your hands, your fingers, tops of your hands, the sides. Good. We're going to move now from your wrists to your elbows. Just your attention. Leave everything else the way it is. From your wrists to your elbows. Again, in both arms, we're going to move now and focus in on the area from your elbows to your shoulders.
just the area from your elbows to your shoulders. Let your attention now go to your shoulders, between your shoulder and your neck. Along your neck to the front of your neck and the back of your neck and the sides. Your attention now goes up to your chin and the cheeks and around your mouth. And then around your nose and eyes. And your forehead and your eyebrows. Let your attention now move around to the sides of your head, your temples, and down to your ears, and around to the back of your head. Your attention now goes up to the very top of your head, right to the very crown of your head. Just focus on the very top of your head. Now, to end this little meditation, what I'd like you to do is to focus on your entire body, all together from your toes right to the top of your head, to the tips of your fingers. Your body all in one piece, comfortably sitting there. And at any time you feel like it, you can just let your eyes gently open.
And hello, and welcome to the Internal Map of Reality, Session 3, Part 2. And we're going to be looking at sources of beliefs. This is the second part of Session 3. So let's go over to the PowerPoint. And in the first session, we sort of identified beliefs in a general term, but we also looked at them in terms of how they become a working part of your personal internal map rather than things. But let's just look in more detail at where these beliefs come from. Now remember that you have a belief about everything. I've begun to believe that if you believe something, you will not do it. Okay? If you don't believe something, you will not do it. If you don't believe you're going to get sick, you will not get sick. If you don't believe that going to school is a good way of preparing for the rest of your life, then you probably will drop out of school or not go. Now, of course, there are unavoidable things that just happen that we can't really control, but to a large extent, everything that happens in our reality is connected to a belief. Okay? So we really note the things that we can't control, sort of what we call them, the acts of life, whatever. But the majority of the things that happen to you on a day-to-day, moment-to-moment basis are all associated with a belief. Those things, particularly things those related to your health. So this is quite important, that if you believe something is healthy and do that, the likelihood is that your body will respond this way. And this is part of the external beliefs. So your family, your culture, the way you eat, the way you exercise, the way you play, the way you express your emotions are all beliefs about the world and about what it is and what it means to be part of a family or a culture. And your society will give you rules, lots of rules. And the core belief here is that if there is a society rule and you go along with it, then that will make you a better member of society. So this is a peer group type pressure, being a member of society, of a group, and all the rules, all are beliefs. So you believe if you stop at red lights, you will be safe and you won't get a ticket. And you also believe that if you go through red light, there's a chance you get a ticket. Then there are the special group, what I call events in your life from the outside world. things that have happened to you that have caused what I call a root cause event. We're going to be working with root cause events a great deal, and this becomes part of your timeline. And some events in your past have created power beliefs, but other events from your past have created very unresourceful beliefs that may cause you to behave in unresourceful ways. It may even cause you to be sick and ill. Now, these experiences from the past can be very, very limiting. So think of them as root cause events. Something that happened was the primary root cause that today you are still experiencing. We'll look at some of these root cause events. So here's one. Suppose when you were a very young child, say preschool age, you got lots of colds and you were sick quite often. So you might have been told and believed that doing certain things would prevent you from getting sick. So you've been told, don't get wet, keep your socks on, don't eat certain foods. You will have certain behaviors to avoid those events. So I'll just use an example of getting sick as an example, but there are many, many others, and we'll go through those. So these root cause events form beliefs about your world and about how you behave. And the most important thing to note here is that all of these external beliefs are optional, and you can either change them or drop them. However, quite often they're shared, and you can just look around you, and they're very observable, and you will find groups of people having shared beliefs. And you may even have been one of these people who, when you're around a certain group of people, you behave one way, and when you're around a different group of people, you behave in a different way. An example being of that, if you were one of these people who went to church and wore dressed up really nice, and your Sunday best, and behaved very, very politely and sat very nicely in your chair and pew. But then after church, you would meet your friends in the local pub and smoking cigarettes and, cursing and swearing and telling dirty jokes. So there's an example how your behavior, your beliefs about how you behave vary depending on your group setting. The internal ones are the ones that I'm really, really interested in, because quite often, and again, this relates to root cause events, you have had traumas or developed fears from the past that you then have beliefs about your future, your present and future. You may have had role models that you really, really admired or that you feared. And because of that role model, be it either one that was more resourceful, one less resourceful, you would mimic them. Okay. And the final one I think is really important is your experiences in the past of having very deep and meaningful loving experiences, either with family members or close loved ones. So all of these form beliefs. Okay. Now, the interesting thing about these types of beliefs is if you back end them, you will find that they then will connect to desires. So, for example, the fears and traumas, your desire to avoid that fear or trauma would become a core desire, which you would then build many beliefs to be able to do that. Your core role models, you might be wanting to be like, so your core desire would wanting to be like that person. What's the problem with that? The potential problem is that it's a very specific person. Rather than a general belief, it becomes, I want to be like Joe. So that becomes an issue, because when it comes to outcomes, there you will be limited in terms of the beliefs and outcomes that you can have. So we'll get into this more a little bit later. But so the big three: fears and traumas, role models, and loving experience. The most important thing here is that these beliefs become repeatable, but they become very resilient rather, and consistent. You can almost bet on people's behavior and you track back as to what their beliefs about their inner world has been. So here's exercise 5. We're going to design a belief. But the way you design a belief is to come up with a desired outcome. So what is it that you would desire, something you want? The more general that desire, the easier it is to develop a belief. Now we're going to use our power frames to develop a belief. So you come up with a desire, say, I'll use the one wanting to be loved, and then you create, and we create together a frame. And in that frame, you will see yourself being loved, okay? Having people around you, so maybe someone giving you a hug or someone holding your hand. So then you would say, okay, to make that frame a reality, what would I have to do? So then you create a belief about, well, perhaps I need to smile and be friendly and be outgoing. So your belief is that in order to be loved, I believe that I should be very positive, smiling, and outgoing. So you have that power frame of you being very, very outgoing, powerful, smiling, and just radiating. So there's your frame where you see yourself there radiating, and we already know how to make that power frame, what to do to make it more tangible. And then you internalize it. So what actually I'm saying here is that you pick a desire, you make a frame, a power frame about it, about achieving it, which in essence is a belief about how to get it. Your internal, your subconscious will take that frame and begin to make it real. The more powerful your frame is about achieving your desire, the easier and the more likely it is for your subconscious to give you that outcome. So let's walk through the steps one last time. Pick a desire, make it as general as possible. Make a frame, a power frame, where you visualize yourself achieving that desire. Built in that frame, obviously, is a belief that if you do whatever is in that frame, you will achieve your outcome, your desire. And then go through the steps to internalize it. So that's a quick little session today, and we'll spend more time about this exercise because I think it's something that will come in very handy as we proceed. So stay tuned, and we will part 3, where we'll look at beliefs about our world. Thank you for participating, and again, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me at any time. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that presentation on beliefs. I will be sending out a follow-up for that exercise to the Patreon members. Now, coming up is, to wrap up tonight, is our bonus topic, lifelong scripts. And this is a very, very important example of ways we can use our internal map of reality for healing. And hello, and welcome to bonus number 4. And these little bonus topics are intended to sort of cover areas that I think you might find very interesting. And one function of these little bonus topic videos is to give you a peek ahead at some of the things that we'll be going into in much greater depth. One of the major components of your internal map is something called a script. And we have little scripts and we have big scripts and we have a lot of scripts that are lifelong. You play them out your entire life. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. So the idea of having a lifelong script is really connected to your subconscious realm. These scripts run in the background. Computer programmers might call them a subprogram or a background process. So you have a lot of these processes that you don't have to monitor in real time, but they have an impact on you in your awake conscious state. So we'll be covering that a little bit, and then we'll talk about inner desires, how these scripts are really trying to satisfy desire, much like our belief system is trying to satisfy our inner desires. Our scripts are trying to put together an elaborate scenario, almost like a little video or a little film or a little play in which our desires are met. Some of them are very resourceful, although the ones I'm interested in today are unresourceful beliefs or unresourceful scripts. And they are kind of the same. So you believe that doing these things will meet your desires, but there are unresourceful ones. So we could call them unresourceful scripts or unresourceful beliefs. And I'm going to use an example of one that's very, very common, and you might be able to relate to it, called the victim triangle script. And then finally, we'll just talk in general about lifelong scripts and how, with your internal map of reality, you can start to identify resourceful scripts from unresourceful ones and what tools you will have to enhance your scripts and to make them all resourceful for you. So as we've been talking along, the 10% of our conscious mind really isn't doing all the work. We're just observing. So your conscious mind is like the example I use is the flashlight in a dark room where you're just putting a spot of light in a vast, vast area. It's in the subconscious that these scripts run. And a lot of people won't even know that they have a script running in their subconscious. And when you say to them, you seem to repeat this process over and over again. It seems like you're always doing the same thing. So one example of a repetitive script is where you keep dating the same kind of person and having the similar kind of result, or getting jobs and always ending up such that you have to quit your job or you get fired. Or again, I'm talking about unresourceful scripts because those are the ones that limit us. If you have successful, resourceful scripts, we don't really need to talk about them. They're good. It's the ones that are unresourceful that we need to target. So these scripts, as I said earlier, are all trying to meet your inner desires. So you want something and you want it really bad. And so you create a scenario based on your belief that if I do this script, I will get what I want. But again, talking about unresourceful scripts, I'm reminded again of that young boy that was in my drama class. It was actually a creative movement class. And his script said that every time people were doing something, he had to over-participate. He had to overreact, be the loudest, stand in the middle of the group, and dominate. And that was his script, and that's what he did all the time. So that was an example of a little script, but it was very, very unresourceful. And the result of it is, yes, he did get attention. Yes, people did pay attention to him, but he got negative attention. People were very upset with him, and quite often they would say things to him. The scripts I'm interested in today are ones that are a little bit more involved. They're scripts that you repeat over and over again, but they're a little bit more elaborate. For those of you who are interested in doing more research on this, you can look up something called Games People Play. Just Google that or search for that, and you'll find all kinds of information about this process. And sometimes they're called games, but I like to call them scripts. So the unresourceful ones are based on a belief that if you do this, you will get your desires met. But the problem is you're on a treadmill. You keep doing the same thing over and over and over, expecting to get the result. But you never quite get the result. You get something else. This is also connected to making those 3 wishes, but you end up getting the opposite of what you wished for. So this all involves in how you're communicating with your subconscious. And we will, again, later on in our internal map of reality course, we're going to drill into this a bit deeper. But think of yourself or someone you know, and sometimes it's called being in a rut. And you notice people will do the same thing or a similar thing. Now it's slightly different. The faces will change. The names are different to protect the innocent, but the script is the same. So let me give you an example of a very powerful script that you might be able to realize. And it's called the victim triangle script. This is a well-known script, well documented. If you, again, do an internet search for victim triangle, you'll see reams of information about it. So we'll use this as one example of scripts. I'm not going to get into how to disable the script. I just want to identify it. Later on in our modules, we'll talk about how to disable and how to realign scripts. But let's look at this one. So there's 3 parts to it. There is, at the very bottom, a victim. So to have a victim triangle, you need a victim. But in order to have a victim, you also need someone to persecute or something to persecute that victim. So you need a persecutor. And you need, of course, the rescuer, someone that will come in with the cape like Superwoman and save you. So I heard one thing just an hour ago from my son, who, a friend of his, did something that was very, very dangerous, almost life-threatening, to become a victim and to try to force his girlfriend to pay attention to him. If I do this, I will become very disarmed. So he acted like the victim, hoping that his friends and his girlfriend would want to come in and rescue him. But because the girlfriend did not respond, she became the persecutor. So he's in this position, almost killed himself. Well, in my opinion, it looked like he could have very easily done it. Did some very reckless things to draw attention to himself. The people that rescued him this time were his friends. They came in and got his attention and went to his place and saw his posts on the social media that he was in real serious problems. And they came in and rescued him. And, of course, Hugh was the persecutor, his girlfriend. But let's look at another scenario. You might know someone that always seems to need your help, and you are the rescuer. But all it takes is that one time that you don't come in and rescue them, that they will do what? They will turn you into the persecutor. They will say, well, Steve, I was in really, didn't you get my emails and my phone calls? Like, I was really needed your help. I needed that $20 or $30, whatever. And because you didn't respond to me, I was not able to blah, 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 blah. So they blame you for something that because you did not become a rescuer again. So this process is quite a classic one. So you might be the rescuer at some point and helping someone, or you might be a victim looking for someone to come in and save you, or you might be the victim who points the finger at someone as being the reason that you are in your nasty situation. Or you might be the persecutor who points your finger at someone and says, well, you wouldn't be in this position if, or you might be the persecutor who points your finger at a rescuer and says, don't help these people, they blah, 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 blah. So you can play any of these roles. Now, I want to mention here that it's not that any one of these roles are good or bad. If you're a victim because you've been in some way hurt, that's a valid situation. There's nothing you can do about it. And if you're the type of person that wants to help people, that's great. Go and help those people. So if you're a victim, accept help. If you're a rescuer, go help people. And if you're one of these people that looks around and says, like throwing cold water on people's faces and saying, look, don't go and rescue that person, and stop being a victim. If you want to be that sort of reality person, that's okay too. So none of these roles are inherently good or bad. They're just roles, okay? And the script isn't necessarily good or bad. It's either resourceful or unresourceful. The bottom line is, if you need to be a victim to survive and to get through your day and to do what you got to do, hopefully at the end of it, you are healed. Now, if you have a script that keeps repeating and at the end of it, people are upset that you made people persecutors and unjustly so, or people begin to feel that they've been rescuing you one too many times, or as a victim, you yourself feel at the end of this process, the end of the script, you might feel sad or something was missing. So the point here is that these scripts can run very, very short periods. It can run for an hour, but a lot of them will run for weeks, months, even years. There are people who play the role of the victim their entire lives. And we're going to talk about why scripts would get in place and last an entire lifetime. We're going to talk about your timeline and the root cause event. Something triggered that person to be a persecutor, a rescuer, or a victim. And if it's not resourceful for you to be any one of these characters, and bear in mind, you might be all three of them. You might see yourself over the life of a script being a victim, then being a persecutor, and then being a rescuer. It's quite common that victims become persecutors and change the rescuer into a victim. Anyway, it's an interesting script. Keep your eye open for it. And if you see yourself being any one of these threes, examine and see if this is a repetitive script. These scripts can last your entire lives. And this is why, in this course, I want you to really begin to look at yourself and to say, am I running a script that's unresourceful? And am I running a script that has a bad ending? Am I making a film with a bad? So you have this opportunity to redo the film, to change the script, to update the characters, and to end it in a real positive and resourceful way. So that's what we'll be doing. I just wanted to introduce this topic. And so pay attention to it, do some more research, and we will be coming under this topic, I believe, under meta programs. But in any event, we will be going into this in greater detail later. So thank you, and we will continue now with the rest of the course. Now, I believe this is the end of tonight's session, so please leave comments, and if you want to join the Patreon group, please just go to patreon.com/Stephen D. Oliver, no spaces, and we'll see you in the workshop. Oh, one final note is that I will be doing, as we're doing the premieres on this, I will be doing live streams for the Patreons, and probably I'll leave it open, where we'll answer questions and go over the exercises. So there will be live streams, probably on the weekend afternoon. Okay, so probably like on a Saturday or Sunday, but I will get the information out to you. Again, thank you, and we will see you in the next session.